Thanks for coming.
He was gonna
Yeah.
do the presentation.
Much more
Thank
people
you.
than yesterday. I'm glad you guys came. The real reason why I'm here actually is because I was invited to a fantasy convention called Eurocon, and I have to be honest, came all the way out to Ukraine. I live in California, so when we think of conventions, we think of like Comic-Con. Have you ever heard of Comic-Con? Where a convention is an entire convention center with thousands of people. A couple of weeks ago I was in Los Angeles presenting at the convention there, and there was around 10,000 people. Okay, so I was invited to Eurocon. I was very excited about it, to be able to go to a convention in Europe. Amazing, right? So we planned this for months. Now, conventions in Europe, I'm familiar with German conventions, French conventions, Western Europe conventions. London has some great sci-fi conventions. I do speaking engagements at Doctor Who conventions. In Los Angeles, they have one of the largest Doctor Who conventions in the world. So just last February, I was there in LA again, doing another presentation, because I'm also considered a Doctor Who expert, and I'm this close from writing for the TV show. Just a few more connections to go. So I was excited for this Eurocon thing, and I have to be honest. I got there, and I was scheduled to sign books for all 4 days, and I have a schedule tomorrow to speak there. I was there 2 hours on Thursday. I left. It wasn't a convention. I don't know what it is, and it's the very first time I have ever left something I was scheduled for. I mean, I've done events all over the world, and it's the very first time that I actually left an event. It was really bad, and it didn't help that the guy who organized it was really drunk and all over the place. It was bad, and in California, even at conventions, we're very professional, especially if you're presenting or you're speaking, or even if you're just signing books. But also these conventions, if you know about them, we also have loads of fun as well, and there was none of that going on. So I left it. Probably my most favorite event since I've been here is speaking at your university. Now I probably pronounce it wrong. Taurus. Yeah. Spoke there, and the students were absolutely fantastic. It's one of my favorite places. There's about 250 students there, and we just had a really great time. But since I was in Ukraine, I wanted to do a little bit more than just Eurocon and the university. I want to come and, do a little bit more intimate events, and this is one of them, where there's not a whole lot of people. The less people, the better, because I get to interact more with people, basically, and have a little more fun. Yes, sir.
Can I expand on your conventions?
Sure, absolutely.
I'm
Sure.
an airline pilot, and we did an overnight in the city around Phoenix or somewhere out that way. And we go to the hotel, change our clothes. We all met in the lobby. We were going out to dinner. I thought I was on some alien planet, because not only these people go to these cons, conventions, they are into it. I mean, it's like they spend $4,000 or $5,000 on costumes, and you would really think you were on an alien planet.
Yeah. And I actually do want to
They
thank
didn't pay me to say that.
Yeah, no, but thank you for interrupting me, and
Woo.
please, if you have any questions while I'm speaking, please raise your hand, because it gives me an opportunity to drink water. And I'm a big water drinker, and at some of these events, speaking at universities, what have you, sometimes I'll be speaking for 3 or 4 hours straight, and then after that, another hour doing questions and answers. And you're an airplane pilot, I'm sure you've been to California, but we're all very fast-paced, fast-moving, everything is. In fact, we're so fast, even when I go to the East Coast, like Maryland, which is a state in Virginia, to me, those people are extremely slow. You know what I mean? So we're just very, very fast in California.
Now, for people who live in Stewart, Virginia, they would take offense.
I know. But, you know, and Washington DC as well, which I would expect them to be very fast there, but they weren't. And so Californians are just very, very fast paced, fast moving, and fast talking. So I apologize if I'm talking too fast, okay? I apologize for that. So yeah, just to expand on what this gentleman had said, yeah, the conventions in the United States, the fans dress up in full costumes. Like, I'm a big comic book person. Okay, I've been reading comic books ever since I was a kid. And one of my short stories that I have created, which is in my latest book here, is a short story called The Sumo Geisha, right? And the inspiration for that was I had seen an acquaintance of mine, this girl, of course, but she's like really overweight, like really overweight, and there's nothing wrong with that, to be politically correct. But she had like this sumo, this geisha outfit, you know, Japanese geisha, and I always thought geishas to be very slender, very beautiful. And looking at her picture, I said, "Wow, the sumo geisha!" Right? So I wrote this whole story about a sumo geisha in Japan. It's a comedy. It's a little bit of a comedy piece. It's a little bit of Japanese weirdness. Japanese are very, you know, odd in many ways, you know, in regards to their entertainment. And after that story was produced, I never heard from her again. I think she deleted me from her Facebook page, so it wasn't the good inspiration. But so people at these conventions, you know, they dress up, and like I said, you know, I'm a big comic book reader. And in fact, I'm just beginning to produce a comic book of my own, outside of Marvel and DC publishing, another Image Comics, which is in Berkeley, California. That's a whole other story. So I delve in all types of different media and realms of writing. But these people go to the conventions. Like, have you ever heard of like the X-Men? They've had movies out. And
we are not in the Stone Age here.
Okay.
Really.
Okay, because when I go to Russia, a lot of times they have no idea what I'm talking about. So I ask that, just out of courtesy, right? So they have like 5 or 6 people dressed up as each character on the team, and they walk around together. It's like everyone takes pictures with them. It's like, hey, take pictures with X-Men. They're just there to have a good time, but people run up and take pictures with them. There's people who dress up like the Ghostbusters, right? And they look just like the Ghostbusters. I want to take pictures with the Ghostbusters. And they have Star Wars fan clubs, like Extreme, okay? Like, and forgive me for saying like all the time, because in California we're saying like. So I'm just talking to you like I would talk to anyone else back in the States. So have you ever heard of like Civil War reenactments, where people dress up in Civil War costumes? They have Star Wars reenactments, and you can go there and join the rebel side or the stormtroopers, and you have people literally dressed up like stormtroopers, and they have real R2-D2 robots running around the halls. That's a convention. So when I came here, I was like, I was gone. I left. It was just really bad. I felt sorry for my fellow writer who was there, who came from England. I didn't talk to him, but I looked across the convention hall, and he looked at me, and he saw my disappointment, and I saw his disappointment. But lucky for me, I wasn't the guest of honor, and he was. So it was a bigger disappointment for him. You know, so I was happy that I was able to just bolt out of there really fast. Yes.
Well, sorry that you were disappointed.
Yes.
But I think please keep in mind the differences between the countries that we are looking at, or any other countries that you've been to in conventions.
Sure.
And the economical and the mentality differences,
Sure.
and the I don't know, we have a big disorganization problem. So this wasn't like personally an offense for you. This is
No.
how these things
No.
usually go here. And
Sure.
also about the fans, I would be happy to be Hermione Granger any day. Any day with a full
Yeah.
costume and everything,
Sure.
but like my personal economical like status here and like
Sure.
what I get and what I am able to get,
Yeah.
as big of a Harry
Sure.
Potter fan that I am,
Sure.
I really can't afford a
Sure.
full
Even
costume.
one.
and
Well, sure, but
everything.
that's not
even
the- yeah.
even like the normal one. So like
Sure.
there are a lot of people who would
Sure.
like to be as invested
Yeah.
in the fun culture
Uh-huh.
than as in the US and the big conventions and everything. But it hasn't come to this point yet
Yeah.
where we can actually be organized together and do it together. But
Sure.
I think if you give us more time, because your country has been independent for what?
A little over 200 years.
Oh, and we have
Okay.
been for 20, so
Yes.
or
No, no,
something.
no, yeah,
So like,
yeah.
give us a little bit more time, and please come back again in like
Oh, absolutely.
10, 15 years, and then we'll give you all the droids and like Princess Leia's and Chewbacca's and everything.
Yeah.
Okay?
Well,
At
I'll
least
tell you
we'll
that.
At least we'll show you Sasha.
Yeah, in an
Well, I will
outfit.
tell you that. I will tell you one thing. Okay, that the first 17 hours I was in Ukraine, I was online in my hotel looking for apartments to buy here. Okay, that's how much I fell in love with it. So I love the people. Okay, I love so far everything about the Ukraine.
Yeah, you are.
It's wonderful. Okay, and it's not the fans' fault because look, I'm on Facebook. I'm from Silicon Valley. I'm on Facebook 12 hours a day. Okay, I'm constantly online. And before I came here, I was reading what the fans were saying, the Ukrainian people who went there, and they were saying the exact same thing I was. So they were in complete agreement with me. So I will be there tomorrow, and I'm going to give all the fans all the love that I'm going to do. You know.
Please.
Yeah, absolutely. And I understand that, independence for 20 years and being an American, and I can speak for all Americans that we're so happy that Ukraine is a very independent country and we support it 100%. Americans always support independence. Sometimes we express it the wrong way. Like going and sending troops for independence. That's the wrong way of doing it. But, we do support, of course.
For your perspective, I just had read recently that the average wage in Crimea is $200 a month.
Sure.
And in Kyiv, it's about $450
Sure.
a month. So tough to come up with $4,000 for a costume.
Sure, no.
Exactly.
No,
and
yeah.
the prices for the costumes are not that much different from the American prices. So like the wages are like 5 times less,
I'll make
and
you-
then the
yeah.
prices are the
Well,
same.
it's actually the prices over here, it is 50% more
Yeah, yeah.
than in the
Yeah.
United
You know,
States.
like when you're there, you can buy an iPhone for a
Sure.
normal price, and
Oh, yeah.
here it's 3 times
I'll make
more
you a deal.
expensive.
I'll make you a deal.
Oh, I thought you were gonna make her a costume.
No, well, you're close. I'll make you a deal. You like me on Facebook page?
Okay, what
get
do I
your
have to do for that? What,
Like me on
will you do
Facebook
for that?
page? Okay?
Uh-huh.
And next time I come to Ukraine, I'll come and do an event here and I will bring you a brand new Hermione Granger outfit, okay?
Okay.
And
Deal,
then you
that's a
cannot
deal.
wear it just at conventions, but you can walk it down the
I'm
street.
just gonna walk around in my free time.
Should I turn my tape recorder off now that I have that on?
Well, we're being filmed actually, so it's on there, and this will be on YouTube as well, so you'll,
I am not ashamed.
yeah.
Well,
I am out and proud Hermione Granger fan.
can I just make a really quick comment to what Sasha was saying
Yes.
about the costumes and things? Like, we do have conventions, but they're kind of small. And yesterday you talked about finding a comic, because you were looking for Ukrainian comics. So we had a comic convention, Ukrainian comics, but it's a really small one.
Yes.
But we had it, and we had it, I think, the first time this year. It's kind of really exciting.
Yeah, I would have loved to have gone to that.
And we have some like anime festivals that are kind of appearing. So I think it's, and what people do, like what my friends do, they make their own costumes.
Awesome.
And for some things you don't need that much money, but you just need a lot of patience and kind of planning beforehand. But what you were saying about conventions, like I think now in Ukraine it's kind of exciting because it's only starting, and it's gonna grow in the next like 5 years. So what Sasha was saying, if you come back, it's gonna be more. But it would be just fun to see the growth because like before we didn't even have those conventions and we didn't have cosplay at all.
Like
and now there is at least some.
20 years ago, you couldn't read all those books. You couldn't get them even. Like when I was born, my mother couldn't have read like I don't know, Jack London. I'm not saying he's not a fantasy writer, but I mean.
Well,
and
let's
and now you can read all of it.
Well, I think here's the difference. Growing up as an American, I've never known anything but being independent. Been independent all my life.
I am older than my country.
And yeah, so and that's why sometimes we say a little bit too much, and sometimes we get a little out of hand sometimes when we say things because we're going that way.
We're still welcome.
Yeah, thanks.
Sasha's just excited about her Hermione costume.
But I'm excited about conventions, and I would always offer my services to run a convention. If someone from Ukraine said, "Dave, can you come over here and help us run a convention?" I'd love to do it because I love conventions.
Maybe me and Tanya will team up. She's gonna be like an executive for Lord of the Rings, and I'm for everything else. And then I'm for Harry Potter, and then we'll call you and.
Absolutely.
You'll be our guest of honor, and
Yeah,
you'll have to sit there.
How these conventions start just starts by a couple of fans, and it turns out being something big, and then they spend the rest of their lives organizing conventions and making a lot of money doing it. But I went to every magazine stand in Ukraine looking for comic books. In Russia, it's hard for me to find bookstores because the layout of the city is much different than San Jose, so it's harder for me to, like I can go to a Barnes & Noble bookstore, if you've heard of Barnes & Nobles. They're giant bookstores, and you can just go and get everything there in one place. And at least I can speak for California. You can walk, you just know where everything is, and it's really easy to get things. And it's hard for me here because it's only like my third day, so I don't know the lay of the land, right? But I did, in the end, find some comic books, and I bought like, what do you call your currency again? Yeah, $70 worth of, or 70 worth of comic books, and once again, growing up in the United States, my favorite superhero was Captain America. Growing up, but also when I was a kid, I'm from British ancestry. My family came to the United States in 1920 from England, so I still have a lot of relatives in England. So I spent a lot of time there. So in the late 70s, I was like 6, 7 years old, and running around Manchester by myself, picking up Captain Britain comic books, going to the sweet shop and eating candy, sitting in an alleyway in England reading Captain Britain comics. So Captain Britain's like my favorite all-time superhero. So I went to a magazine shop at one of the underground stores, I call them underground stores here, and they had like a comic book with Captain Britain on it. I practically went, wow, like awesome. I was just like totally ecstatic about it. I said, give me 2 of those. And I have Russian comic books at home, which is really cool. I don't want to get too much into this because I'm supposed to be speaking about a topic, but just to say that in the United States growing up, in the 80s, we were taught, Russia, Soviet Union, evil empire, blah, blah, blah. So when Americans think of evil, they think of communism, blah, blah, blah. So when Avengers first came, when the Avengers movie was coming out in theaters, they had entire buildings plastered with like Captain America. I'm like, are you kidding me? That would have never happened 20 years ago. And it's an amazing thing to see for me, being as someone who grew up near the end of that Cold War era, being taught all those things, and finally going to Russia and seeing like a giant Captain America. Are you kidding me? It amazes me. So anyways, let's talk about the real subject, because you need to keep me in check. You need to be like my policeman, okay? Because I just run off into tangents, and you get me on one subject, I can talk about it for hours and hours, right? Okay. So let me talk about how I started writing. Basically, it began at age 6 for me. I spoke a little bit about this yesterday. I started writing plays, you know, in the classroom, and that's why I had bad grades. And I wanted one of my plays to be put into an assembly for school, because my friends, I was the director, and my friends would act out my scripts after school. We're talking little kids, 7, 8 years old, you know. And in California, that happens a lot, actually. Everyone's into acting, and plays, and movies, and music, and blah, blah, blah. And she said, no, your grades are bad, but I'll tell you what, if you get your grades up, you can do it. Her thinking that I will never get my grades up. Well, I got my grades up, and we started performing my plays as a kid on stage. Now, one of the very first plays that I had done was I don't know if you guys heard of this, disaster films. Like Titanic would be considered a disaster film. And in the 70s, Charlton Heston, the actor, had a movie called Earthquake. That was a big hit in the 70s, and that was like a disaster film. And a disaster film, what that is, you know, it weaves in and out of other people's lives, their daily lives, and then near in the middle of the movie, a giant earthquake happens, and then you see how this devastation changes their lives and how they go through it to survive. And at the end, in American stories, there's always usually happy endings, right? So, so mine was based on a Charlton Heston movie, because Charlton Heston's my favorite actor. Has anyone ever seen a Charlton Heston film? I recommend Weekend. Yeah, I know you have. Weekend homework. Watch the movie Ben-Hur. B-E-N-H-U-R from 1959. Okay, I'm not that old. I saw it on TV. I didn't see when it came home theater. Okay, I'm only 43. So that is the greatest movie ever made, and it's won 11 Academy Awards, and no film has surpassed it in winning more Academy Awards than Ben-Hur. Now, one movie tied it, and that was Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, that won 11 Oscars, and so did Titanic. So those three movies are tied for first, for the most Oscars. So please, check that out. So my first script was based on his movie Airplane, which is a disaster film on an airplane. So as a kid, we had like 2 seats here for the pilots, a little space back, 2 seats. I have 2 of my friends playing pilots, and they have a little girl here and a boy here, and they would just read the scripts, and we would practice, and that was one of the first plays that I wrote that was actually performed in my school, you know, and it's always remember that. So writing since I was 6, I've been doing it all my life. Not really short stories, believe it or not. I was writing, you know, full novels at age 10 years old, you know, age 10.
Were they out at age 10?
No, and they were only for me, because nothing was published. They were just for me. I just loved to write and write. So during high school, it actually kind of ceased for a while, because in high school, I ended up getting involved with girls and parties. So my writing kind of ended for a while, and it didn't really come back until after college. And I wrote for, I'm sorry.
You said you started writing at 6, between 6 and 10.
Yeah.
When I had worked as an electrical engineer, I asked one of the other engineers, where did you get these ideas to make these leaps in your designs? And he's like, did you ever watch science fiction?
Yeah. Well,
And my question to you is, at 6 years old, where do you get the ideas? What?
Well, it's, yeah, no, I understand. No, writers are a little demented in a sense. I mean, I'm not crazy, I'm an old guy, but I'll tell you a little something about me that nobody knows. You guys, this is the first time I can actually say this. And you might think it's kind of weird, but being a 7-year-old kid, to me, it shows my imagination at that age. Very you have to be very imaginative to write fantasy. When I was 7 years old, I thought that I was the only actual human being on the planet. I thought every person on the planet was a robot, except for me. And when I went to school, they all interacted, pretended they were people. When I left, they would all stand still like this, and they would stand still until I came back, and then they'd start moving again. At age 7, this was my thinking, you see? So I thought, even my friends were robots. So this is kind of embarrassing. So I'm at my, this is kind of embarrassing. So I'm at my kitchen window, and I lived in an apartment as a child, and there was a